the reason that I started, I mean, Make Noise didn't really, it wasn't like a mission or something. It started very slowly. Like you said, I made 18 modules, some people bought them, and I thought, oh, wow, maybe I'll make some more of these. So I made like another 20, and some people bought those, and yeah, it didn't start like this. It started like literally a spare corner in one bedroom. So yeah, but I think a big part for me of what's fun about doing this is watching people use the instruments. I have to say, it was really great to see you perform your patch today, for example. I mean, that was fascinating to me. I actually enjoy more watching other people use the instruments almost than using them myself. There's something really fun about seeing someone use something that you're building. I think it almost feels like and I don't want to assume this because it's not completely a collaboration, but it does in some small way feel like a collaboration.
I think it's absolutely
you feel like you're in some way a part of something that someone else is doing, and especially when that someone else is doing something that you really like, that feels really great. So, yeah, I don't know if that completely answers your question. I guess I just read a lot of books. every book I could find, and schematics. That's the other thing. Anything I ever get, if someone brings something by the shop, I basically take it apart and look at it while they're not watching. Like yesterday, I was like, oh hey, I got this great DI box. It works really well, and it sounds really good. So as soon as he left, I took that apart. It's just what I do. Like I'm taking it apart. I think Alessandro left some of those here one day while he was here last fall. I took all of those apart. To me, that's how I learn. I open it up, look inside, see how they did what they did. I mean, you can't figure out everything just by looking at something for 10 minutes, but you can get an idea of how someone did something. And it's just like art. And any artist that claims that they're coming up with ideas out of the ether is completely full of shit. They're all taking from everything that's all around them, and that's the same thing that anyone who builds musical instruments is doing as well. So I want to consume every possible idea that's ever been done with synthesizers. I want to look at every module. I want to play with every module, hear it. If I can find a schematic, then God, you better bet I'm going to read the schematic, commit as much of it to memory as possible, and then go on making what we make here. So yeah, I guess just consume all the knowledge you can get about the subject matter.
So we're going to open it up for questions. We're going to start over there, black sweater. Yeah, you.
This question's for Rob. It's about tuning and using your vocals. Were you using like any auto tuning when you were looping your vocals to get things?
That is my voice.
Okay.
That's like everything that comes out of my mouth, like how my mouth is shaped, like where the air is coming from. Like I can make it readier if it comes from the throat, and it's just me playing around with this sort of harmonic language within and just singing to myself. Yeah, there's no auto tuning or anything.
You did have a computer though to do some looping, or
no? The computer was playing the video that was projecting on it.
Oh, how were you looping your vocals?
I had a little Boss loop sampler pedal, an RC2, something like that, and as I'm singing, I'm just stepping on it and deciding when to introduce another loop.
Is that tempo synced to?
No, absolutely not. No, it's all intuitive. It's like that. My process is all based on intuition. Like I don't have, I can hear something, and if I hear a beat here, then I'll sort of sing to it over here, and most of the time it'll come together. Sometimes it doesn't, and it goes weird.
That's what makes it exciting.
Yeah, exactly. And that for the most part, everything kind of, I can sort of rein it in a way, but generally it's kind of uncontrollable, and I like the fact that sort of idea of controlled chaos, like it sort of sits in this phase, and you work with it, you kind of play with it. And there was a lot of feedback that the mic was getting last night that was producing this loop of bass that was sort of rolling over and then sort of kind of took over everything. And like, just being able to play with that, like where you hold the mic, how you get feedback. If you
So that doesn't happen every night?
No.
So you were improvising with that?
It's always improvised. It's spontaneous. It always happens in the moment. And any sort of, and the thing is, it's a singular thing, and it doesn't stop. Like when it starts, it stops at the end. Like I won't cut it off and like, let's try that again. You know, it's like, it's in that moment, and those little mistakes, those little mistakeisms, I call them, you play with that, and that's really exciting to me.
That's interesting.
Great.
Was that because Rich put the PA behind
Yeah.
people?
Yeah, red t-shirt.
I see there's like a recording button on that, and I was wondering how that's like utilized within the system. I don't really understand. Is it like a bank thing?
The Phonogene.
The Phonogene.
Oh, on the Phonogene.
recording?
I'm sorry, I didn't know what you were pointing at there.
Yeah, like this. That's a recording button.
Yeah, I think, let's see, how does Rich have that matched?
Looks like Rich is doing voltage controlled recording. He's sending a gate out from the sequencer, so every time that gate triggers, it initiates record on the Phonogene, which is, the Phonogene's kind of a crude looper. It's, you know what it is, I hate to use the word looper because today loopers are such a specific thing that are mostly developed for guitar players. This is a looper that's developed more for synthesizers and for synthesis. So it does a bunch of things that that loopers don't typically do. In this case, he has, for example, voltage control over the record. So it looks like probably what he's doing, and I'm just taking a guess, maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong, but it looks like he's initiating record at times by programming in gates to the sequencer. And then it looks like he has the output of one of the low-pass gates going into the Phonogene.
Yeah, so basically I'm just catching little bits and pieces of one of the oscillators, and then I have the CV output gate sending a pulse to hit record at different cycle points.
You might be able to see it a little better here.
Yeah, because my patch is all. Yeah, so basically I just have a cable going into there, out from the Renee gate output. And then I have my woggle bug here, which is clocking the Renee. So every time I clock and send a pulse back, it'll send a pulse out to trigger this. It may not be, it's like kind of an irregular pulse because I switch, when I do my performance, I'll switch between using the internal clock, internal clock of the woggle bug, and then I'll change that by patching a cable into the, not the hard end, but the clock input on this one right here. And then I actually use, and it's funny because with Rob's patch, he was using the pressure points to play melodic scales, microtonal stuff. I'm actually using the pressure points in a completely different way to actually trigger events and to hold things. One of my CV outputs is to the freeze function on the echo phone, so I can freeze the delay time.
Remember when we were talking about when you would capture a sound and it would keep repeating and repeating and repeating? That's what the freeze is doing.
Right, so I do basically stuff like that, and then a lot of my other outputs I just have going to the things that I can manually trigger and cause more irregularities and pauses and weird junctions at points. With the pressure points, using it more as like a controller, as opposed to using it like a...
I guess though, to answer your question, the Phonogene is a...
Sorry, yeah.
Totally didn't answer his question.
Yeah.
I mean, it's my fault as much as yours. To answer your question, the Phonogene is well, the original Phonogene was a device that an artist in France had built. This is way back. And it was a tape machine. Well, there's 3 different versions of it. But one of them was a tape machine that had multiple playback heads, and you had control over the speed of the tape and the speed of the playback heads. And the playback heads would spin at one speed, and the tape could spin at another speed. And you could achieve very, very crude methods of time stretching and time compression. And they would also do things like cut loops and then play them back on the Phonogene and kind of warp them, you know, speed them up, slow them down, change the direction, that kind of thing. And so the Phonogene is a sort of an attempt to put the techniques of music concrete into a modular synthesizer and under voltage control. So what you were asking about that record button is exactly what it sounds like. It's a way to initiate record into the Phonogene, much the same way you would initiate record on a tape player or a sampler, something of that sort.
And that artist's name was?
Oh, Pierre Schaeffer.
Amen.
I'm sorry I missed your performance last night, but you're talking about your vocal techniques, and then I'd like to expand the question to all of you, really. But do you ever use your voice as a controller for your modular synthesis? And that would, and I heard you talking about Wacom tablets, so it's just interesting to hear all of your comments on what kind, if any, external controllers that you'd like to use in a modular context.
That's great. You know, honestly, I have not really used my voice as a controller for this, which it's something I keep meaning to do and just kind of never get around to it because I have an idea and I forget it and I move on to something else. But that's something that I will be delving further into in probably a really short period of time. As far as other external controllers, I don't know. I mean, right now, I've been using a modular synthesizer now for about 4 years. And there's still, I haven't quite cracked the code. Like, there's still an enigma, not to put a weird World War II reference on it, behind the machine.
Random
What's that?
Random generator.
Yeah. And so I'm still really getting inside of the machine and digging in, and I really enjoy the amount of control that I have right now. But I think in due time I will start to use it more. I think Richard probably does quite a bit of external control with his.
But with the modular synthesizer, do you?
Well, I'm getting into different things, like you saw my other case.
Your expert sleepers?
Some of the expert sleepers. I just got the expert sleepers modules. There's new modules that are coming out that are allowing you to interface with the module in different ways, like using your iPad, using other application environments like Max MSP, or
It's still pretty young, though. I mean, that's not
it's
fully
in its
developed.
early stages. I mean, you can do, and I'm totally all about exploring those different avenues because I'm very much looking for new ways to gesturally control sound with different controllers, like using the lemur. I use that quite a bit in my studio, and you were talking about using the voice as a controller. I do that actually to make sound effects in another system called the Kima system, where I use my voice as real-time input to control sine waves, and then you can change those partials, the odd or even harmonics, and shift those around with like a Wacom tablet and draw and shift the frequencies in real time, so you get these weird alien sort of things happening, and so that's very cool. There's lots of, and then the Wacom tablet, I use that quite a bit. So I'm always looking for gestural, different ways to control things. But with modular, I think it's like you said, Tony, it's at such an early stage that it's just now starting to happen. You're going to still see stuff with the iPad. It'd be great to have gestural control to send out CV voltages or something, where like using like the lemur software, which I love, sending breakpoints to float into space that'll bounce around in a room, and that'll maybe send CV voltages out, or that can be converted to something. Or, you know, I mean, if there's, I think it's a really exciting time right now. I think we're in this shift right now where this is actually becoming there's so much innovation happening right here.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
There's also innovation happening with like iOS, like the portable iOS device. Like I work with a lot of iOS developers on Android and on the iPad, and like there's lots of innovation even happening there too right now as far as synthesis and different ways to
Something
control.
like Connect, maybe.
Yeah, totally.
I mean, also, this whole thing is a control.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, there's nothing. I'm not saying that I would be opposed to exploring what you're talking about, and actually I could show you a patch for how you could use the amplitude of your voice, for example, to control any parameter in the system. If you're interested, I can show you a patch after we get done jabbering up here. But, I mean, I think there are people who could definitely benefit from such a patch. Like I think that you could do some really cool stuff.
Right.
And even thinking about when you were saying that you were getting microphone feedback last night, and being able to maybe capture that feedback in a way and then use your voice to shape the amplitude of it or something like that. Standing away from the speaker or something. And you could do a lot of really great stuff with that, and it would look great. That's the other cool thing. Screaming into it, channeling a little bit of early Rollins or something like that. Fantastic. I'm not suggesting that you channel any Rollins. Take my shirt off.
So we have time for just a couple more questions. Yeah, go ahead.
Tony, I was wondering if you could talk about your design process a little bit. How do you make choices of what to include, what to leave out?
Yeah.
For example, I mean, the Phonogene, what made you think of using CV to control the recording process there?
Well, because I watch people like these guys perform, and especially, Rich and I talk a lot over email about this kind of stuff. If you notice, in most of the manuals, he's listed as our spiritual advisor. I mean, for example, putting voltage control over the record, I think when I'm trying to come up with the idea for with a module, I'm thinking, how can I make this something that could interact with everything else in the system? And coming back, touching on what Rob was talking about, how any given circuit, it has its own job when it does this one thing. But then when you plug it into another circuit, they start having a conversation. And I think that conversation idea is sort of the essence of modular synthesis. If you don't put a way for some other module in the system to control such an important function as record, I feel like you're missing the point. You're missing out on this whole world of sounds that you could get when someone like Rich, for example, uses a gate output from a sequencer to turn record on and off at will. So I think that's why I put voltage control in maybe, I guess at first glance, seemingly ignorant places. When you actually start using it, you might think, well, initially I thought, why the hell did this guy bother wasting the time and money to put this in here? But then when you start using it, you might start saying, oh wow, I just found this new sound that I didn't think I'd ever get because I didn't know it existed. And now I have it, and it's my sound, and I'm going to start using it in this music that I'm composing this week.
Are there times when you leave it out?
Excuse me?
Are there times when you leave it out?
There is times, and I think that it's almost harder to decide what to leave out than to what to put in. And I think when you get into that, what you have to start thinking is, at what point do you present the artist with so many possibilities that it's paralyzing? And I get that all the time whenever, so someone that we work with from time to time is Tom Erb, who does SoundHap plugins. And Tom will send me these Maxim SP patches that he does, and they're like so big that you need like two full-size computer screens to look at them all at once. And it's just so much going on. It makes this look tame almost. And there's so many options. And he'll say, well, this reverb that we're working on, for example, I could have a feedback path here, or here, or here, or here, and there's all these different choices that software lets you have. And sometimes for me that gets really overwhelming. So choosing what to leave out, I think, is probably the most important thing. You can really guide someone in where they're going to take something by what you leave out, as much as what you put in.
There's
You
also
gotta make it fun and easy to use too. If something's too complicated, it's no fun. And when something's not fun, I mean, why would you want to make music like computer programming? It's not fun. Well, I don't know. To me,
It might be fun to
yeah. There's also the reality of shipping.
Right. There's also the reality of building it. Yeah, exactly. Which is something that I think here in Make Noise we are learning more and more every day as we run a shop that has to actually sell stuff to keep people's paychecks coming through and everything. You kind of got to start thinking about, well, we need to build something that we can actually build consistently too. So you do have to think about that. Unfortunately, it's a real world. You got to pay the rent and all that kind of stuff. You have to kind of think about that too. Like, you know, if we put this in here, it's going to cause all this trouble. Is it really worth it? Will someone use it? And usually I say yeah, and I put it in. Sometimes I go ahead and leave it out. And then also I have bounced ideas off of these guys. Rob's on my email list now as well. I don't know if you like that. Or no, you do respond, but I never know if I'm just bothering you with the endless. You know, so we discuss stuff too. I have like a collection of about 5 artists that I have on my email list. I just send off, hey, you know, working on this, and it could do this or this, or maybe this, and then you kind of take feedback from them.
And also the folks who work here and intern here, they get to beta test those as well.
That's a great thing that I never had until we actually hired some people to work with us. Being able to have someone right in the shop, like Dash or Joe, where I can say, hey, come over here, listen to this, what do you think of this? And just kind of reading their response is great.
There was a group that I played with when Kelly and Tony knew me years ago, and I sort of played with my voice, but like in a very popular music context. And the more I sort of played around with it, and I, you know, as a teenager, I listened to Meredith Monk and Diamanda Galas, and I was very interested in vocal music. I was very interested in early music and in early choral music and medieval music. I was very interested in vocal music from the Middle East, and my knowledge for that grew over time. And I realized that the voice wasn't showcased enough as an instrument. And so I took that as my path, and I really started to develop my voice and work in the construct of spontaneous music and creating these improvisations, you know. And it was in the moment, and it's sort of based on the idea of repetition and trance and these sorts of things where you sort of get lost, and maybe you'll go one way that you didn't think you were going to go, and that's something that really appealed to me, that sort of discovery, these little epiphanies that would happen. And I would utilize other instrumentation with my voice in that context, and I got to the point where using an electric stringed instrument or an acoustic steel stringed instrument or something percussive was great, but that was ground that I had already covered. And I had a lot of synthesizers, a lot of hardwired synthesizers that I loved, and I loved the sound of them, and I loved playing them, and it was rare that I would utilize them. And when I started to use guitars less and less, I would start to use hardwired synthesizers, and then I moved on to using those new Mogerfoger pedals as a dedicated synthesizer, and I would have maybe 6 of them with a patch bay, a CV controller panel, and I would use that because the more I heard it, the more I realized that the voice, like the human voice, and the synthesizer coupled quite well together. They make a lot of sense together, and so from that, and with the aspect of having sort of no limits with what you can do with a modular synthesizer, for me it was nice because it was pushing into learning more about modular synthesis, more than because I understood the signal path. I understood what an oscillator and a filter and an amplifier and a low frequency oscillator and an envelope. I understood what all that was, and I understood how it worked, and I understood how it sounded. But then getting deeper into function generators and random voltage generators and what that could do, and the physicality of it. And also the idea of really physical music. Like years ago, I realized that music can be something that's very forceful and not in a negative or aggressive way. It's just you feel it. It can be very physical, and the physicality of sort of digging into it and the voltage that it would kick out was it was exhilarating, you know? It's kind of amazing.
I find a lot lately when I work in the computer, say like with Macs or one of these environments, because computers are so fast now, there's really no limitation. You can build as crazy as a reactor or a Max patch as you want. And the beauty in Max is that I find in Max is, in an environment like that, is you can automate things. Like you could have 200 millivolts. You could have all these crazy things that would be almost like impossible in a real world situation, or in like a hardware situation that would be difficult. But at times I find that having too many, like everything at my fingertips, I have a harder time deciding what I'm going to use than actually doing something. You know, like I'll for instance, I open up my laptop and I look at my plugin list and I'm like, oh, I have 889 VST-AU plugins. I can't, it takes me 15 minutes just to decide what I'm going to do. I'm like, I'm not getting anything done. I'm not really thinking about what I should be doing. I'm not even getting to the creative part at all. I'm just trying to figure out what I'm going to use. And I find that working in this environment where you do have some limitations, it forces you actually to be more creative in a way. And that depends on the environment too. The synthesizer you're working on, like how many features you have within that synthesizer. I'm kind of a person who likes to start off with like a blank space and I just sit down with that piece of hardware or whatever and get like really intimate with it, figure out all the little things I like about it, all the functions that it does, and like little weird hiccups and things that it might do wrong. And I feel like I'm more creative with less than I am with more. So, but I've done cool things with Macs. I've been using it for a long time. Like I was telling Rob last night that I bought Macs at my school bookstore in college when it was just Macs owned by Opcode, and I was looking for something to sequence my hardware sampler in a really weird way. I wanted to make my sampler sound like it was malfunctioning, and like how could I do this? I can't really do this with the hardware sequencers that I have in my studio. They're all very linear based. They don't do strange things where I could like make the tempo go from 0 to 1,000 and, you know, in a couple seconds. Or I have multiple different sequence different things and different events and toggle things on and off. Really strange things to happen that would be very difficult to do with. I couldn't get my hardware sequencers to do that. And even my linear-based sequencer, my digital audio workstation where I was working with at the time, which was Cubase, I couldn't get that to do the weird stuff that I wanted. And I was just basically exploring, and Max was a great place to do that, because you basically start off with just a blank page. You're like, oh, let me make a sequencer, let me make a metronome, and like, I'll send that out, and I'll clock these things. It's kind of like working with this, in a way, where you're working with modules, and then thinking about how one module is going to affect another module, you know. And I basically did that and experimented with my Akai sampler at the time and just triggered different loop points and pitches and like did all these really strange things to hear new sounds out of like the samples that I had in there. So that was basically, it was interesting. But now it's Max 6 and you have like infinite options and yeah, like I said, having too many options is sometimes a bad thing. You know, it can be very bad. And when you're trying to achieve something. If you're just exploring and stuff, it's great to learn about things. But for me, these days, I have to like work with less to get more creative output.
So maybe we can start by giving them a round of applause. I feel like maybe I can speak for Tony on this as well. We feel very fortunate to have such talented musicians and artists that we get to work with, and are even more grateful that they're our friends. So it's a really good space to be in. What we're going to do for the rest of the time is you all can play and hang out and experience these wonderful and bizarre machines, which, as Tony says, won't solve any problems, but might create some for you. A couple of other things. I didn't introduce myself earlier today. I talked a lot last night, but my name is Kelly, and I run the business side of Make Noise. So I'm going to be selling merch. If you want to buy modules or you want to buy a system, come and talk with me. I'll be back there. I also have some of Rob's merch for sale over there and the Shared System Series records for sale. We are going to have some people who work and intern at Make Noise around to answer questions. If you want to play around but you get stuck or you're like, what's this doing? Dash is over there. Joe is back there, and Walker is right there in the middle, so feel free to ask them. They are going to hang out, so you can talk to them about whatever you want to talk to them about. Find out some more information from them. We would also, this is the first time we've done anything like this, so we would love feedback. If you all have feedback for us, we'd really appreciate it. Just what you loved, what you would love to change. That is all really helpful to us. And then we have coffee and cake still, and I'm probably going to shift that to be in the kitchen, and then we're going to put out some lemonade and pretzels. And yeah, if you all need anything, we're around. Thank you so much for coming.